Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The next big thing in sports podcast, and we are back to deliver part two of our 2019 NFL Draft Class Review. If you did not tune in last time, I encourage you, please go listen to part one before listening to part two. Spoiler alert, we go through every single draft class from number 32 all the way to number one. A little differently than most sites or outlets do it. We don't give grades and no A's or B's for each class, but we take each class as a whole, we rank them, put them in order. What do people like more than the NFL draft and ranking stuff? So we decide to rank every draft class. I've done it every single year for about 10 years now, just for friends of mine to be like a conversation starter out there. We talk about the classes, where's this team ranked, blah, blah, blah. So this year I'm doing it for you as a podcast. The last podcast we did number 32 up to number 17. And this podcast, we're going to do number 16 all the way up to number one. But before we get there, let me reintroduce ourselves. We are the next big thing in sports podcast. As always, you can find us anywhere that has podcast-related material. That is your typical Apple iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher. If these outlets have a vehicle where you can put a review, a 5-star review, preferably, and get the word out there about us. Say, I like this guy. It just gives me the straight information. We don't have any fluff on this show. We just try to get right into what you want to listen to. There's no advertisements. There's no, there's no commercials. It's just straight what you want to hear and talking about, your favorite topics, whether it be the NFL, fantasy football, or in this case, the NFL draft, and we're breaking down each and every class. So, if you're a fan of a certain team, you're out there, listen to certain podcasts, say, well, they never talk about my team or the players that we drafted. This is not the podcast. We are talking about every single team, every single player. We at least mention their name. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in, and we're going to begin number 16. The Minnesota Vikings come in number 16 on the list. And why are they number 16? So I like what they did. Not in love with it, but I think they did a pretty good job. With their first-round pick, they drafted Garrett Bradbury. As you know, we're big fans of Garrett Bradbury. We had him ranked right about here, early 20s. I think he could be a potential Pro Bowl player at center. I see the appeal why Minnesota would like him. Preferably, I would like to have seen Minnesota go with an offensive tackle. I think it's a more important position in the NFL. I think most people would agree with that. And the Vikings are missing offensive tackle help for Kirk Cousins and company. So Bradbury is going to help, no question about it. He just comes at an inferior position. So if Andre Dillard's still on the board, guys like that, I would like to see Minnesota attack that position, or at least in round two, go after an offensive tackle who might be still available, maybe trade up for one of those guys that didn't go that route. So Bradbury, very solid player. I think he could be Pro Bowl caliber, just at a position that's not as important, offensive tackle, which is clearly a need for the Minnesota Vikings. In round two, they took Irv Smith Jr., tight end out of Alabama. I like this pick for a couple of reasons. One, I was not the one to value Irv Smith in round one. I know a lot of people did. I didn't. And I heard a lot of speculation he was going to go in round one. New England Patriots being a team speculated highly with Irv Smith Jr. I never really saw it. I never really thought the value for Irv Smith Jr. was in round one. I was more of a round two, mid-round two kind of guy for Smith Jr. So seeing him being selected by Minnesota here, pick number 50, that made a lot more sense to me. I think that's good value. And again, adding an element as an offense for Minnesota, I think Kyle Rudolph's days in Minnesota are numbered. Whether he plays as a Viking in 2019 or not, I just don't think moving forward he's long for the job, if you will. So I think they added a guy, Irv Smith Jr., who can play for him for the next 8 to 10 years, fit in well with Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Dalvin Cook. for the position of need. I think the Vikings did a good job of adding value with need. With one of the last picks in round 3, the Vikings took Alexander Mattison. Now, Mattison may not be a household name to many out there, but he was fast rising in the scouting community. A lot of people, he was getting day 2 buzz as we got closer and closer to the draft. Winding in Minnesota is a good spot for him, backing up Dalvin Cook. Remember, the Vikings just lost Latavius Murray via free agency to the New Orleans Saints. So it's a good guy to balance Dalvin Cook. And from all accounts, the Vikings want to be a more balanced offense in 2019. Now, the Vikings had a ton of picks in day 3. So I think in round 4, Drew Samia, solid pick. About where we had him. We had him as a high-end round 4 pick, the kind of guy who could eventually become a starter. I like that value there. And round 5, Cameron Smith, the edge rusher out of USC. I can see Minnesota trying to develop him as a poor man's Anthony Barr type of player. He has not the same skill set as Barr, but in a similar vein, I can see that type of projection. Then he had 3 picks in round 6 and 4 in round 7. In round 6, he went Armand Watts, defensive tackle out of Arkansas, Marcus Epps, safety out of Wyoming, Oli Ado out of Elon College, offensive tackle. And then in round 7, they took a few names you might be familiar with. Chris Boyd, the talented cornerback out of Texas, Dylan Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Oregon, Olabisi Johnson, wide receiver out of Colorado State, and Austin Cutting, the long snapper out of Air Force. So, in day 3, you kind of know what you're getting. You're taking flyers on a lot of guys. I like the value on Chris Boyd. Minnesota knows how to draft cornerbacks, develop them up. So he might be a guy you might hear his name mentioned again. And Dylan Mitchell is a kind of slot wide receiver. I think he could be the kind of guy who could eventually find a footing if they go 4 wide receiver sets. Could help all of it as a punt returner, kicker returner from Minnesota, so could help on special teams. But ultimately, this draft boils down to Bradbury, Smith, and Madison, all offensive players. I think they could add elements to the offense that did not exist prior to their selection. So Minnesota gets a solid value at number 16 on our list. Moving on to number 15, a team that had very few selections, I believe the fewest in the draft. The Philadelphia Eagles, right, number 15. And I know some people, again, may roll their eyes knowing that I am an Eagle fan. Remember, they're just a middle-of-the-road value here, number 15. Did not have as many selections, but I think they hit with the selections they have. Remember, in the draft, it's great to have a lot of picks, but your picks in round 6 and round 7 are worth very, very minimal. The likelihood of these guys hitting and winding up as starters are very slim. And in fact, some people put more value on undrafted free agency than they do in the 6th and 7th round. So, not having picks in those rounds, I don't think are actually detrimental to the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a pick in round 1, 2 in round 2, and I think they hit on both of these picks, or all these picks rather. So in round 1, they traded up from 25 to 22 to take Andre Dillard, the offensive tackle out of Washington State. This is one of the better picks and better marriages in the entire draft for my money. We might talk about Andre Dillard in another podcast. Spoiler alert. The Eagles really liked Dillard. They had a top 10 grade on him. I had an early teen grade on, I want to say 13th overall on Dillard. I think you know what you're getting. You're getting the best pass protecting left tackle prospect in this draft. So, whereas Jawan Taylor, people had him on the right side as a road grader type as right tackle. Jonah Williams may play right side, might kick in the offensive guard. Cody Ford, in all likelihood, is going to be right tackle, potentially offensive guard, but I believe they said he's going to stick at right tackle. But Dillard was the one guy who people projected, okay, this guy can play left tackle. He's athletic enough. He has the quickness, has the experience to play left tackle. You question his run blocking acumen because he never really did it at Washington State. But for a team, the Eagles, looking for a long-term replacement for Jason Peters, which you would imagine this will be his last year in Midnight Green, they want to keep Lane Johnson on the right side. Andre Dillard makes all the sense in the world for the Eagles. I was pretty excited, as excited as somebody can be to draft an offensive lineman with their first round pick. In round two, I spoke about it. They had two picks within the span of 5 overall. I had 53 and 57 in the draft. Miles Sanders, running back out of Penn State. The Eagles were heavily linked to him throughout the draft process. From all accounts, they really liked him, really coveted Sanders. And I talked about Sanders a few times in the podcast. To me, he was the best blend of athleticism and everything you need to do as a running back. So he's a good runner in between the tackles. He can break it outside. He also he projects to be a good pass catcher. We believe he's going to become an asset as a pass blocker. So he's not Joshua Jacobs. Jacobs adds more versatility on a higher end than Miles Sanders. Sanders is a better athlete than Joshua Jacobs. So, and I think David Montgomery is the better running back in between the tackles than any of them. I think Henderson is the best running back outside the tackles than anybody. But for versatility and can check the boxes for everything, Miles Sanders is second to Joshua Jacobs, and that's what you saw. This is where he came off the board here at pick number 53. He can do everything you're asking him to do. And again, you talk about fits with the Eagles looking to add an element to their running game. They have Jordan Howard, not much of a pass catcher. Miles Sanders makes a lot of sense. You pair him with Howard, and Sanders can be the alpha to your running game for the next 7 to 8 years. They got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside with the 57th overall pick. A surprise and picked the sum. Great value. I had him as an early to mid-second rounder. To get him late in round two is great value for Arcega-Whiteside. He, to me, is almost a clone of Alshon Jeffrey. And people say, well, how can you use these guys as a tandem? You have to figure in the past, the Chicago Bears, when they drafted Alshon Jeffrey, had Brandon Marshall. And they used Marshall and Jeffrey collectively combined to cause fits for defenses. Look at Tampa Bay right now. Tampa Bay has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, two bigger body wide receivers. Doesn't seem to be a problem. So I think that Jeffrey and Arcega-Whiteside can work together. And ultimately, Alshon Jeffrey is going to be entering his 30s. He's been injury prone in the past. You don't know how long his game is going to last in the NFL. Remember, a guy like Dez Bryant was built in a similar vein of big physical wide receiver. Didn't have the long speed or deep ball acumen that Jeffrey does. But sometimes these guys can fall off the cliff. So who's to say in 2 years that Alshon Jeffrey, his game is not diminished and the Eagles don't want to bring him back? Well, they have an in-house replacement in Arcega-Whiteside. So I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great look for the future. I think you could eventually be the Eagles' number one wide receiver with Jeffrey and Jackson entering their advanced years for Philadelphia. So I think this is a pick that can be valuable for 2019, but also can be more so valuable from 2020 and beyond. And then day three, they had two picks. Sharif Miller, defense end, Penn State. Actually, more of a depth piece for the Eagles. And Clayton Thorson, Eagles can bring him in, compete for the third quarterback position. Smart guy. To give you an idea, I ranked Clayton Thorson and Daniel Jones back-to-back on my ranking. So, again, how teams approach things differently. Daniel Jones goes 6 overall for the Giants. Clayton Thorson goes 167 overall to the Eagles. You can imagine how I evaluate these two selections. So I don't think Clayton Thorson is, a superstar or anything, but can he develop into a career backup and you get him in the 5th round? Absolutely. So the selection is solid. Speaking of solid, we're going to move on to a very solid draft, 14 on our rankings. And this team tends to do this year in, year out. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Draft aficionados, if you will. They always perform well in the draft. We'll start at the top. Number 1, Marquise Hollywood Brown, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. Now, the Ravens did not have a second-round pick, so the Ravens traded down from 22, added a few day 3 selections, and reaped the benefits of it. And Marquise Hollywood Brown is exactly what the Ravens wanted. They wanted a field stretcher. They wanted to add speed on offense and defense. So he started with potentially the fastest guy in the entire draft in Marquise Hollywood Brown. Um, Again, you hope he adds an element to their offense and opens it up for Lamar Jackson and the running game. So at 25, I love the value. My number one wide receiver. Great pick for the Ravens. And round three, a couple guys who are more, I guess, projects. And you figure Jalen Ferguson, an older prospect, very experienced defensive end at Louisiana Tech. But I just question how his game is going to adapt to the NFL level. But I think it's good value here. I mean, it's all relative. If you had taken Jalen Ferguson early to mid round two, I may have shaken my head. I had a late round two grade on him. The Ravens get him a late round three. I know he tested terribly. He tested horribly as an athlete. But again, the guy was very productive. The Ravens love production. If anybody can get anything out of him, it's Jalen Ferguson and the Baltimore Ravens. And a few picks later in round three, the Ravens took Miles Boykin, wide receiver out of Notre Dame, just an unreal athlete, tested off the charts at the 2019 Scouting Combine. Again, if the Ravens believe they can develop wide receivers, if they believe, hey, we got guys who can take these guys and mold them out of clay and develop them into starters, Marquise Hollywood Brown and Miles Boykin combined, that's a unique pairing. So I like the pick here for Miles Boykin, Baltimore Ravens, and around three. It's about where I valued him. So again, marry the value with the need. I like it a great deal. I thought the Ravens did a good job in day three as well. You got to figure round four, Justice Hill, running back out of Oklahoma State, we really liked. Again, valued him right around here, beginning of round four. Can come in. You can marry him with Mark Ingram, Kenneth Dixon, whoever else they bring back. He can add an element to your offense and can contribute in your running back by committee. Ben Powers, I can see him eventually being a run blocking starter for him right now. He can be the first guy off your bench. He's going to be on the interior offensive guard. Iman Marshall, cornerback at USC. Again, a guy we valued around round five. He comes off at 127 overall. Really had no problem with it. See if they can develop him into maybe eventual starter, but more likely as a nickelback or depth piece at defensive back. And round five, Dalen Mack. Now, this is a guy we had a late round three grade on. I think he's a good run stuffer. He's short. He's not your dynamic athlete, but you know what he is. You know what kind of value he brings. Again, he's not going to start for the Ravens given what they do at defensive tackle, but I like the value here in round number five. He's the kind of guy you can develop in 2019, and eventually 2020 comes around. He has a bigger role, and you're saying, oh, yeah, I remember Dalen Mack. I remember us drafting him a season and a half ago. And he drafted Trace McSorley, a name you're probably very familiar with, quarterback out of Penn State. Not exactly wild about that selection. I thought McSorley would go undrafted. Don't see him as a potential NFL quarterback. But again, in round seven, I'm not going to be here to quibble with the Ravens. Did a really good job and ranked 14th on our list. Keep it moving here to number 13 on our list, the Carolina Panthers. Thought they did a good job with a limited selection. Just had your standard 7 picks here. Brian Burns in round one. We had a top 5 grade on Brian Burns. The fact that he went 16, I understand some teams in the NFL were concerned about him, but he can hold up against a run. Will he pass rush past the quarterback, take himself out of the play? I get all that. I think this guy's going to have a huge impact. I think he is going to be a perennial threat for double digits in sacks. Getting him 16th, the pair of the Ravens, the Panthers, who were looking for additional pass rush help. It was a great marriage for me. I love the pick. In round 2, we knew the the Panthers. The Panthers wanted to add to both their offense and defensive line. In an offensive line, they added Greg Little, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Some people liked him more than most. We liked him around this range, around mid-round 2, maybe a hair early. But again, the offensive tackles were going earlier than maybe anticipated. I know he's a bit clumsy, needs to work on his footwork, but a guy looks like a offensive tackle. I think to get him in the NFL, get him coached up by some teams here, Carolina now that have him, coach him up. I think he can develop as a future offensive tackle in the NFL, so I like the pick. In round 3, Will Grier comes off the board, and we liked Will Grier. Not as much as other people. I know Pro Football Focus, I believe, had him number one at quarterback. So they had a first round grade on him. So we didn't have that high grade on him. We had him number three on our list, had a late round two grade on him. To give you an idea, I ranked him ahead of Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones. He goes here, picked number 100. So I like the value here much better than where Haskins or Daniel Jones was selected. And in day three, I thought he did a good job. Christian Miller is one of my favorite guys. I thought it was great value, Christian Miller. I look, the injuries really set him back. I get it. I completely understand it. The guy is really talented. I had a late second round grade on him. He goes early round four. Great pick for the Carolina Panthers. In round five, they get Jordan Scarlett, big tough running back out of Florida. Potentially could be paired with Christian McCaffrey in their backfield. Round six, you get Dennis Daly, an all tackle out of South Carolina. It wouldn't surprise me if Daly ends up wanting to be a starter as well. I think he's got a lot of talent, a lot of traits to work with. And Terry Godwin, wide receiver out of Georgia, goes in round number 7. Again, more of a depth piece at wide receiver. Could eventually help you in special teams. But again, round 7, not a big deal. So, number 12 on our list. Once upon a time, when the Carolina Panthers came into the NFL, they were joined with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're joined here once again. Number 12 on our list are the Jaguars, and I thought they did a tremendous job early on in this draft. In round 1, they let the draft come to them. Josh Allen picked number 7. We had him as a top 5 guy all throughout the process. He slid to number 7, and then instead of the Jaguars overthinking it and saying, well, we want to go offensive line, we don't necessarily need a pass rusher, they took clearly the best player available, and you can never have too many pass rushers. And Calais Campbell was getting a little older. I could see Allen being rotated in 2019 and taking over full time in 2020. This guy is a terrific talent. Again, I talk about him in the same vein as Brian Burns, Nick Bosa. This is the kind of guy that's going to be a double-digit threat every single year in regards to sacks. And you don't find those guys every single day. This guy, number 7, great pick. The Jaguars doubled down and in round 2 got Jawaan Taylor, offensive tackle out of Florida. Many people had him as a top 10 pick. Apparently, there's some concerns, some red flags about potential injuries with a back and a knee. He played overweight, et cetera, et cetera. And those are legit concerns potentially, but if those are alleviated and this guy can play, he was a top 10 pick for a lot of people. A lot of people had valued him that highly, had him as the OT1 in this class to get him at 35 overall and early round 2. Pairing him with Josh Allen, just great. I thought it was great picks, Barry, and that's what really made their draft class. In round 3, I think they reached a little bit for Josh Oliver. I know they wanted to add to the tight end position. I think Josh Oliver out of San Jose State's a bit of a project, but they got their work made out for him there. Late in round 3, they drafted Quincy Williams, who I did not realize was the brother of Quinnen Williams until the draft at Murray State. Again, did not have much film on him, but from all counts, a super athlete. Just needs a lot of work. In round 5, they came away with Raquel Armstead. He was one of my favorite backs and value picks entering the draft, so I think the Jaguars did a good job there. This is the kind of guy that could be the backup for Leonard Fournette, and getting your number 2 running back in round 5 of your draft is good value there all around. In round 6 and 7, they got Gardner Minshew, quarterback on Washington State. I didn't think very highly of him. Maybe a career backup. We'll see. In round 7, got Dontavius Russell, defensive tackle out of Auburn. Not bad. I thought he was a good rotational piece. Getting him this late, good value. So Jaguars did good. I say it's all about Josh Allen and Jawaan Taylor for me. I thought they came up with a grand slam, followed by another grand slam, and that is what made their draft. Moving on to number 11 is their AFC South division mate, the Indianapolis Colts. And some people like their draft more than me. Again, this is a team where I think I like their process and appreciate their process more than their actual picks. I thought they did pretty well overall, though. I think what the Colts do, I think. I think they try to hit a lot of doubles, but I mean, last year they hit home runs with their draft. So getting Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard in one draft is just out of this world. I don't think they have any All Pros here, but trading out of round one, getting into early round two, picking up some additional picks. They still had that additional second rounder from last year's draft, but trading down and getting Jets getting Sam Darnold and the Colts getting Quentin Nelson. Just great process. I really enjoy what the Colts do. So they end up with 3 second-round picks here. They started the draft with Rock Ya-Sin, the cornerback out of Temple, Van Banagoo, the edge rusher out of TCU, and Paris Campbell, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. So Rock Ya-Sin was gaining a ton of momentum. A lot of people were saying potentially late in round one. They had him as top 4 cornerback in this class, and it came to fruition. He's just hard-nosed player, great intangibles, was winning over the coaches throughout the entire scouting combine and in the interview room. So you saw that the teams were big fans of Rock Ya-Sin, so him being drafted 34th overall came as no surprise. Van Banagoo, I liked him more as a late second, early third rounder. Just an unbelievable athlete. You see the athleticism, and it's hard to ignore how athletic Banagoo is. But to his own account, he admits he's very, very raw, and at times he's not exactly sure what he's doing out there. So, this is the kind of guy that he's going to need some coaching up. I would not expect immediate impact from Banagoo, but eventually I think could be developed into your starter outside your 3-4 outside linebacker. Paris Campbell, I think, is a great fit. He can be used in a variety of innovative ways. I don't think Ohio State did him any credit and used him on underneath routes vast majority of the time. You pair him with a T.Y. Hilton, Devin Funchess, Eric Ebron. I think you can do a whole bunch of different things with Paris Campbell and getting him 59th overall, where I know some people had late first round grades on him. You get him about a round later than that, and it's a great value, a great projection for Paris Campbell. In round 3, the Colts took Bobby Okereke. He was a linebacker that was gaining a lot of momentum as well. We had him right about that in mid-round 3, so good value for Okereke. I think he could be eventually be a running mate for Darius Leonard. Very long, very instinctive linebacker out of Stanford, so good value there. And in round 4, again, Kerry Willis, the safety out of Michigan State. I know a lot of people liked him as a round 3 type of guy. We had him round 4, round 5. So, I like the value waiting into the 4th round to get him. In round 5, he had 2 selections. Marvell Tell, the third super athlete out of USC. Some teams view him as a cornerback. Some teams view him as a safety. So it's going to be interested to see eventually where Indianapolis plays him. They have E.J. Speed, the linebacker out of Tarleton State. Also in round 5. In round 6, they drafted Jerry Green, the pass rusher out of Mississippi State. And in round 7, they had 2 picks, Jackson Barton, offensive tackle out of Utah, and Javon Patterson, the center out of Ole Miss. So, again, I think like a lot of doubles here for Indianapolis. I thought they had a lot of good picks early on. I don't think they have anything, superb, excellent picks. Just solid all across the board. Rock Ya-Sin, Banagoo, Paris Campbell, Okereke, Willis, Marvell Tell. I just like it. I don't love it like some people do, but ranking number 11 on our top 32 seems to be about the right spot. Are you all excited out there? Because we are diving in now, the nitty-gritty, our top 10, best 10 draft class of 2019. And at number 10, the Buffalo Bills. Really like what they did here. I think they improved their team both on defense and offense. Did not do anything fancy at pick number 9 overall. Stayed put. Some people were speculating that they wanted to add to their offensive line. They were also heavily linked to Ed Oliver, but a lot of people thought Oliver could go as early as number 3 overall. Did not happen. He ended up sliding down to number 9, and the Bills very fortunate. Got the guy that made a lot of sense for them. Can fill the shoes left from Kyle Williams, the penetrator, defensive tackle in this scheme. Great fit, great value. Love the pick there. In round 2, they drafted Cody Ford, offensive tackle slash offensive guard out of Oklahoma. I say slash offensive guard. Some teams viewed him as a guard. I believe the Bills have come out since then and said, listen, he's going to be a tackle for us. That's how we view him. Putting him at right tackle. And again, hitting it out of the park with Ed Oliver and Cody Ford. We had Ed Oliver in a top 10. That's where he went. We had Cody Ford as a late round 1. He goes early round 2. Just great value. I think the Bills did a good job of improving their team in the trenches, defensively and offensively, and back-to-back picks. In round 3, they drafted Devin Singletary. About where we valued him. We had a late round 3 grade on him. He goes mid round 3. He was getting some round 2 buzz earlier on in the process, getting some comparisons to LaShawn Shady McCoy, and maybe he replaces Shady McCoy in Buffalo. Did not test very well, came in shorter and smaller than had anticipated, but the guy can play. Don't think he's very versatile, but I think he eventually, I think he could wind up being a starter here in Buffalo. Also, in day number 2 and round 3, they drafted Dawson Knox, the athletic dynamo at tight end. Has very, very little production at Ole Miss, so is a pure projection, but love the value. Some people thought he could go as early as round 2. Going here late in round 3 made more sense to me, given his lack of production. Can the Bills use him, or will they use him properly? You got to put him in a position to succeed. I think he could be a matchup problem, and very raw. You got to give him time. But here, pick number 96, I believe, when he went. Great value for me. Day number 3, made some pretty good picks, some guys you've likely heard of. In round 5, took Vosine Joseph, linebacker out of Florida. Round 6, Jaquan Johnson, safety out of Miami. And in round 7, Daryl Johnston, the defensive end slash outside linebacker out of NC Carolina A&T. And just a few picks later, Tommy Sweeney, the sure-handed tight end out of Boston College. So, just again, it's a very good draft. I think they took their swing on some high upside picks, got some good value. Just really liked what the Buffalo Bills did overall. Number 9 on our list, the San Francisco 49ers. I thought they did a pretty bang-up job early on in the draft. Number 2 overall, Nick Bosa. Again, another team that did not overthink the draft. Just stayed put. Drafted the best player for them, Nick Bosa on the outside, opposite Dee Ford. Love that fit for the 49ers. They come back in round 2, taking Deebo Samuel, one of my personal favorites. Liked him as a late round 1, early round 2 guy. That's exactly where he went. And just love the fit in San Francisco for Deebo Samuel. I think with him and some of the younger wide receivers they got, Dante Pettis, Marquise Goodwin. I really like that they're assembling weapons for Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G. Speaking of weapons, in round 3, it took Jalen Hurd, which is more of a weapon. I've heard some people say they'd like to see him used like a Cordarrelle Patterson type of athlete, not a traditional running back, not a traditional wide receiver. And word out of San Francisco is they might want to look at him as a tight end. So, this guy can be used in any myriad of options. Had more of a late round 3, early round 4 grade on him, but don't mind it. Really don't mind it here early in round 3 for 49ers. Again, adding weapons all around Jimmy G, making sure he is successful. On day number 3, got off to a weird start for the 49ers. They drafted a punter in round 4, so they get docked for that. A punter in round 4 is never going to get a green light from me. In round 5, they took Dre Greenlaw, linebacker out of Arkansas. And in round 6, they had 3 picks. Caden Smith, the tight end out of Stanford. Justin School, the offensive tackle out of Vanderbilt. And Tim Harris, cornerback out of Virginia. Pretty nondescript day 3. For me, it all comes down to Nick Bosa and Deebo Samuel. These two guys, I believe, will be top flight rookie performers on defense and offense for 49ers. So they wind up number 9 on our list. Number 8, the Denver Broncos moves all over the draft board to accumulate some talent. So they sat there at number 10, and you know they had to be thinking Drew Lock, at least in their conversations. They were heavily linked to Drew Lock throughout the NFL draft process. They wound up trading down from 10 to number 20 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and number 20 took Noah Fant. I like the Fant selection. We had a late teens grade on Noah Fant, so the value was there. He adds an element that the Broncos have been looking to add at tight end for a while now, and he really fits. He fits a weapon for Joe Flacco. We know Joe Flacco likes throwing the ball to the tight end, and eventually when Drew Lock takes over, he's going to need a field stretching option down the field, and I can see Fant becoming like the best friend for Drew Lock as he becomes an NFL starter. His second best friend might end up being their second round draft pick, 41 overall, Dalton Risner. Just one of my favorite players in the draft. Just a nasty, nasty guy. Has a mentality of an offensive lineman, changes the persona of your offensive line. I just think the Denver Broncos are going to love him. I had a late first round grade on Dalton Risner to get him here in early round 2. So again, love the value. Can put him a right tackle. Can kick him inside guard. Could play a center if you want him to. Has that kind of versatility. But just a tremendous player, tremendous value. I love him here, 41. And then the Broncos trade back up. So they have back-to-back picks in round 2. And what do? They take Drew Lock. So they don't take him at 10. They trade down their board to 20. They move back around and get Drew Lock at number 42, where the value makes more sense. Drew Lock is my number 2 quarterback on my board. I had a late round 2 grade on him. Wasn't really sold on the draft class at all. But, man, I like the value here. If you're going to take a quarterback at 42 as opposed to 10, just made a lot more sense for me. Then you turn around to round 3, get Draymond Jones. Now, this is a guy who early in the process had some round 1 buzz. Then it started to settle round 2. Then it became a round 3 guy. So there's some talent here. Again, get him in Denver, coach him up. I think he can eventually be a starter on the interior of your defense. So again, you think about how a draft is done. Noah Fant's going to start for you tight end. Dalton Risner is going to start somewhere on your offensive line. Drew Lock is going to be your eventual starter, whether it's 1 year, 2 years down the line. And Draymond Jones, I believe, can be a starter. Has 4 starting players in your first 3 rounds. That's how a draft class is built. They only had 2 more picks in day number 3. In round 5, they drafted Justin Hollins, which I like him, an athletic guy off the edge for Oregon. In round 6, they took Juwann Winfree, wide receiver out of Colorado. But it's a very good, solid draft for Denver. They used the process, traded around, and added value on offense and defense. I give the Denver Broncos a lot of credit. Number 7 on our list, the Green Bay Packers. I like what they did. Some people are going to question, well, wait a minute, you don't really like their first pick, but that's how a lot of you guys are. I didn't like what Washington did, didn't like what New York did in the first rounder. Then they came back and they started crushing it from there. So Rashan Gary, we had a high round 2 grade on him. He goes 12th overall. I would have preferred to see a guy like Brian Burns go here, possibly an Andre Dillard, but I get it. The Packers are loading up on defense. I believe they're going to view Rashan Gary as a 3-4 defensive end to play around along the line. Terrific athlete. The Packers have to hope they can get the best out of Rashan Gary. Terrific athlete, like I said, but I valued him personally as an early round 2 guy, so this pick is a little rich for my blood. But the Packers completely redeemed themselves when they trade up to number 21 and get Darnell Savage Jr. as one of my favorite players in the draft, was gaining a lot of momentum. And I love the player. I love where he lands. And I love the fit. I think the fit for him, playing alongside Amos, that they recently signed him for agency on the back end of safety in their defense. You throw in Jair Alexander in the defensive backfield. You see the Packers defense, and it's really starting to come together. They are vastly improving. You combine that with an offensive-minded head coach with one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in recent memory, Aaron Rodgers. You got some weapons there, Davante Adams, Aaron Jones. You got to think the Packers are a team that are going to rebound in 2019 and beyond. Love Darnell Savage. Great pick there. They follow up in round 2 with Elgton Jenkins, one of the better interior lineman prospects. They drafted him 44. We had him valued on our board at 44. So again, great fit. Wasn't the offensive tackle that I expected, but again, this guy brings experience as center and offensive guard to your team in the SEC. Plug him in, play him right away. Is going to add value to your offensive line. In the 3rd round, they got their tight end. Everybody kept saying, the Packers are going to target tight end. Well, Hockenson went earlier. He went 8th overall before they got to pick number 12. They did not value Fant with the 12th pick. So what did they do? They get the next best thing with Sternberger, pick number 75 overall. I know a lot of teams were in on Jay Sternberger. I thought he was going to go late round 2. They get him mid-round 3. Great value here for the Packers. I like the fit, like the value. And day number 3, I thought they did some good things. Kingsley Keke, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M, so he's a very good fit. Kadar Holman, quarterback out of Toledo. Dexter Williams, running back out of Notre Dame. So people liked him more than others. I saw him as an earlier day 3 pick. They get him here in round 6. See if he can get in camp and compete with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams and company. And in round 7, just a peek behind the curtain, if you will. A friend of mine, colleague of mine, Rob Tribbett's been on the podcast before. Very informed. He texted me a few days prior to the draft and said, one of my favorite sleepers in this draft is Ty Summers, a linebacker at TCU, very productive, very athletic. And Rob is a Packers fan, so Rob was over the moon with 7th round pick Ty Summers. So the Packers being the 7th rank on this list could have been higher. Going from pick 21 down, they did a tremendous job. 12 I wasn't sold on. I get it. I just wasn't sold on it, so they wound up 7th on our list. Number 6 on our list, and just missing a top 5 grade from us, the Oakland Raiders. And this might come as a surprise. Some people might say, I thought they were all over the place, and I didn't really get what they were doing. And, that's how I took it originally, and I look back on it, I said, man, I really think the Raiders did some good things. So, pick number 4, taking Clelin Ferrell. I thought it was a little bit early for my blood. A lot of people were surprised by it. A lot of people thought they'd go Josh Allen. I thought they'd go Josh Allen. I thought maybe even Ed Oliver will be in a consideration. But Clelin Ferrell is a 4-3 defensive end. It's a great fit for what they want to do. Great character guy. I think he's just very solid against the pass, very solid against the rush. I had more of a grade in the teens for Clelin Ferrell, so I think it's a little bit early. But I look back on this pick, I was like, man, this is a guy who's going to be a good fit for what they're trying to do. At pick 24, they got Joshua Jacobs, the most versatile running back in this draft. We valued him right around this range. We thought he was going to go 24, 25, 26. We had a late first-round grade on him, so the fact that he wound up in Oakland was no surprise. I think it's a great fit for what the Raiders are trying to do, putting all kind of weapons around Derek Carr. You have Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams in Oakland. You throw in Joshua Jacobs, also in that offense, has a big take up. 27th overall, they took a tone setter and defensive backfield, Jonathan Abram. Again, earlier than we valued him. I had a mid-round 2 grade on him, but the fit is really nice, like Jonathan Abram. Some people compare him to Bob Sanders, can be the enforcer for the Raiders defense. In round 2, Trayvon Mullen. Again, a little earlier than I anticipated. I thought he'd go late round 2, early round 3, but we like Trayvon Mullen, got the length the Raiders are looking for. And where I really think the Raiders made their hay was early in day 3. So, again, I like these picks, weren't in love with them, liked them, but getting Max Crosby, 106 overall, defensive end, outside linebacker out of Eastern Michigan, Isaiah Johnson, cornerback out of Houston, Foster Moreau, tight end out of LSU. We had round 3 grades on all of these guys. So they got these guys in round 4, added benefit, again, Moreau could eventually be the starter at tight end for the Raiders. Getting him in round 4 is great value. Isaiah Johnson, terrific athlete. The Raiders coaching staff can really mold him into a potential starter at the cornerback position. Then you have Max Crosby, again, adding more pass rushing acumen to your team. Potentially, he could play opposite Clelin Ferrell and be a bookend for you. So, really like those values. And they wound out the draft with Hunter Renfrow in round 5 and Quentin Bell in round 6, wide receiver out of Clemson, and Ed Rusher out of Prairie View A&M. So, again, when I ranked these teams, I was even a little bit surprised by where I had the Raiders at the end of the day. I thought they reached for some guys, but ultimately they added a ton of talent on both sides of the football. Farrell, Jonathan Abram, Trevay Mullen, and Max Crosby on defense. Throw in Isaiah Johnson also in the defense secondary. Then on offense, you add your bell cow running back, can do it all. Joshua Jacobs, Foster Moreau at tight end, which they needed. Hunter Renfrow could play in the slot. But all of a sudden, you look at the Raiders team, and they added a lot of pieces that can help this team in 2019 and beyond. And again, that's what makes a good draft class. And here we are to our top 5. And our rankings is why I really get excited about these guys. I really think these teams did a great job. Again, if you have not heard your team, means they got one heck of a grade from us. So, number 5 on our list, the Tennessee Titans. Really liked and really enjoyed what the Titans did. They stayed true to what they want to do. 19th overall, Jeffrey Simmons. This guy has top 5 talent written all over him. We had an early teens grade on Jeffrey Simmons given the ACL injury. If he doesn't play at all in 2019, but comes back to what he was as a player in 2020, the Titans are going to reap the immediate benefits. This guy is a monster. I know some teams had him ranked number 1 on their big board prior to the injury, getting him in 19th overall. I think Titans reap the benefits from this selection. In round 2, they get one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft, A.J. Brown. I think he's the most pro-ready wide receiver in this entire draft class. I really thought he was going to go in the late round 1, maybe very early round 2. To get him 51st overall, right in the middle of the second round, great value, great addition to the Titans offense. At 82 overall in the third round, Nate Davis, the monstrous offensive guard out of Charlotte. I think he's going to do a great job for them. He's going to help. This is a team that really identifies with being physical and running over top people. I think Nate Davis is going to add to that mentality. Then in day 3, I thought the Titans killed it too. In round 4, Amani Hooker, safety out of Iowa. We had a late round 2, early round 3 grade on Hooker. I really thought that's where he was going to go. I really thought, man, this guy's going to go late round 2, early round 3. Really thought good about it. Getting him, the middle portion of round 4, great value for the Titans. DeAndre Walker, edge rusher out of Georgia. We had a round 3 grade on him. They get him in the 5th round. And David Long, I thought would be a good special teams piece, round 5, round 6. A linebacker out of West Virginia. Titans swoop him up there at 188 overall. Just a really solid draft for the Titans. Really like what it did. Only 6 picks, but very good draft for Titans, and I think this could really benefit them moving forward and possibly can get them into the playoffs in 2019. Our number 4 ranked team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I gotta say, another team where I did not originally anticipate them getting this high of a grade from me. I questioned the move for Devin Bush early on. I was like, man, that's a lot to give up for a linebacker, but you really think about it, and that position is so important for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They really need that element to their defense. They just, not having that guy last year really hurt them. Devin Bush fits them like a glove. This is a team that rarely trades up. They really identified Devin Bush as the guy they wanted, the guy they needed, and they went and got him, traded up from number 20 to number 10 to take Devin Bush. So they wound up with no second-round picks, but in round 3, I thought they acquired great value. Deontay Johnson is a Pro Football Focus favorite. Analysts really like him. Analytics really like him. Deontay Johnson is he's one of the more quiet guys. In a class of wide receivers that got a lot of buzz late, I think Deontay Johnson's a sleeper. And for a team that does a great job of developing wide receivers, again, Deontay Johnson could not ask for a better landing spot than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pick number 83 overall, later on in round 3, Justin Layne, the cornerback out of Michigan State. I think he's another perfect fit for exactly what the Steelers want to do. This guy was getting first-round buzz at one point in time. I really thought he was going to wind up in round 2. We had an early round 3 grade on him, going 86 overall. Again, great fit, really good value. Really like the pick there in round 3. And I thought the Steelers did a really good job in day number 3 as well. In the 4th round, taking Benny Snell Jr., running back out of Kentucky. Look, he's not going to win you over with his athleticism, not the most athletic guy, but very productive on the field, very James Conner-esque. Had that kind of style. Looks like a Pittsburgh Steeler. So getting him in round 4, as soon as he was drafted, I was like, that makes sense. Round 5, they got Zach Gentry, tight end out of Michigan. Had 3 picks in round 7. Sutton Smith, the edge rusher out of Northern Illinois, very productive. Again, fits what the Steelers are looking for. Isaiah Buggs, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. I like the value there. Originally, I had him as a round 4 type of guy. Ulysses Gilbert, linebacker out of Akron. And in round 7, they took Derwin Gray, offensive tackle out of Maryland. So just really thought the Steelers stuck to what they do best, developing cornerbacks, wide receivers, linebackers. Those are the positions I really thought they would target. I think they did. I think Devin Bush has an immediate impact from day number 1, brings the kind of leadership to your defense. And I think Deontay Johnson could develop into a starter, and Justin Layne to start as well. So again, getting these guys in round 3, developing them as a Pittsburgh Steeler, just did what they did. I thought they crushed the draft, and they are number 4 ranked on our list. Now to the top 3, our bronze medal winner, the Los Angeles Chargers. Did nothing fancy at all. Stayed put, and I thought they crushed it. Again, your draft is normally made by what you do at the top. I love Jerry Tillery. Had him at number 10 ranked on my big board. He gets drafted 28th overall by the Los Angeles Chargers. And again, fits like a glove. You put him on a defense with Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram and company. And man, this guy can be a force to reckon with. Love the fit, love the pick. 28th overall by the Chargers. Just absolutely in love with it. And then they follow up with another one of my favorite picks. Nasir Adderley was my safety number 1 in this draft. Really thought he was a first-round value. I think I had him 21st or 22nd overall on my board. The Chargers get him 60th overall. So 2 of the best picks in the entire draft. The Chargers getting Tillery at 28, Adderley at 60. Love those picks. Chargers could have sat on their hands the rest of the draft and got a phenomenal grade from me. In round 3, you got Trey Pipkins, offensive tackle out of Sioux Falls. Going to be a project. Chargers going to have to work with him, but he could eventually project to be a starting right tackle. And day 3, Drew Tranquill, athletic linebacker out of Notre Dame. Again, see if they can develop him. Potentially be a starter. Eastern Stick, quarterback out of North Dakota State in round 5. Round 6, Emeka Egbu, linebacker out of Houston. In round 7, Cortez Broughton, the defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. Again, nothing really fancy or exotic. And day number 3, the Chargers draft was made in round 1 and 2, getting 2 of my favorite picks in the entire draft by one team. Will get you a good grade from me. So they get the bronze. Moving on to silver, number 2 on our list. The defending, reigning, conquering Super Bowl champions. Everybody hates them. New England Patriots. They did it again, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great draft for New England. Starts in the end of round 1. Again, didn't do anything fancy. They notoriously trade down out of round 1. A lot of people expected them to do so again, even if they had so many picks. And the Patriots got a lot of calls. I think Denver was calling them. I know Arizona was calling to move up, targeting different players. I know Arizona was targeting N'Keal Harry. New England stood fast. Took Harry. Can be the deep threat that Josh Gordon was supposed to be for New England. Great fit for Tom Brady. For a team looking to repeat, N'Keal Harry is a great weapon to do so with. In round 2, they're looking for a weapon in the backfield. They traded up, got Jawan Williams, the cornerback out of Vanderbilt. Again, fits him like a glove. Man-to-man defense, super long, super tall. They match up with a number one wide receiver, try to shut him down. Just, I think about fits, great fit for New England. In round 3, another great fit, Chase Winovich, defensive end, outside linebacker out of Michigan. We loved him. We had a late first round, early round 2 grade on Winovich. I thought he would come to the board much earlier. Going in round 3, becoming a Patriot is almost sickening for people who hate the Patriots because I can see this guy becoming a force for Bill Belichick and company. Just great value, great marriage there. Later on in round 3, they had 3 round 3 picks. They drafted Damian Harris, just adding another element to their offense to back up Sony Michel. Yodny Cajuste, offensive tackle at West Virginia. We had a mid-round 2 grade on him. He goes end of round 3. This guy's got swing tackle or starting right tackle written all over him. Great value for the Patriots here in round 3. They come back in round 4 with 2 picks. Hajate Froholt, the offensive guard center out of Arkansas. Again, this guy could be a starter for the New England Patriots. You're getting him in round 4. Jarrett Stidham, they go with their developmental quarterback behind Tom Brady. Potentially he could become a starter or, develop him like you do, Jimmy G, and trade him off down the line. This guy has good athleticism, good arm. Can sit behind Brady and learn. And again, in round 4, I'm not going to argue with it. In round 5, they had 2 picks, Byron Coward, the defensive tackle out of Maryland, Jake Bailey, Stanford punter. In round 7, late, they got Ken Webster, the cornerback, super fast out of Ole Miss. But, the Patriots just slated early on. N'Keal Harry, Jawan Williams, Chase Winovich, Damian Harris, Yodny Cajuste, Froholt. Just the list goes on and on. Added to both sides of the offense and defense. The rich get richer, and the New England Patriots crushed it. And our number 1 spot, the gold medal, goes to, well, it all ends where it started. The Arizona Cardinals get the number 1 spot. And this comes from a guy who's not crazy about Kyler Murray. I gave Kyler Murray a early round 2 grade. Quarterbacks are different, so I get it. Kyler Murray was clearly QB number 1 in this class. He clearly has the most talent, best athlete, best arm talent. No one's going to argue that. I'm not going to argue it either. They went number 1. They thought he's the guy. I'm not going to argue with it. It's a great marriage, him and the Cliff Kingsbury offense. So I'm not going to argue with the pick. But what makes it for me is, if I stayed on my board and say, well, it's a little high for me, I would have gone Quentin Williams, Nick Bosa. But I'll give him a pass because it's a quarterback. But they kept killing it, pick after pick after pick from there on out. Byron Murphy in the second round. We had him as our number 2, cornerback 1 in this class. We had a mid-first round grade on him. They get him in the first pick in round 2. Great pick. And in round 2, Andy Isabella. This is the kind of guy that, again, we valued him late in round 2. So the value is there. You can move him all over the field, use him in this offense. Looking forward to seeing how Arizona uses him. In round 3, Zach Allen, 65 overall. Again, that's where we had him. We had him as an early, mid, round 3 value. He fits in on defensive line in 3-4 for them. Again, very productive, great character guy. Love the fit. And then, I thought he did great in day 1, day 2, but then he come back in day 3 and crush it. Hakeem Butler, we had an early round 2 grade on him. I don't think that much separated him from N'Keal Harry and Deebo Samuel and these kind of guys. He goes early in round 4. Could not believe it. The Cardinals did a great job plucking Hakeem Butler. I understand the drops are there, but you don't find guys 6'4", 6'5" with the kind of athleticism and as Hakeem Butler has. So great fit. They can work him in the offense. In round 5, Deontay Thompson. We had a mid-round 2 grade on Deontay Thompson. I loved him. I love the safety class. I thought he was going to be an excellent fit in round 2. He goes round 5 to the Arizona Cardinals. Great pick. They had 2 sixth-round picks. Keyshawn Johnson, wide receiver out of Fresno State. Lamont Gilliard center out of Georgia. Again, all these weapons for Kyler Murray. They're going to get him in there. They're going to work him out. They're going to run 3-4 wide receiver sets in this offense. So you need weapons. And I know they wanted to trade out from N'Keal Harry. They valued him highly, and I don't doubt that. But staying put and getting Isabella, Hakeem Butler, and Keyshawn Johnson. That's great value. Great job of working the board. And in round 7, they come back with 3 picks. Joshua Miles, the offensive tackle out of Morgan State, Michael Dogby, defensive end out of Temple, and Caleb Wilson, Mr. Irrelevant, tight end out of UCLA. And this guy might end up being a starter for UCLA. This guy can stretch the field. He showed as a versatile weapon for UCLA. Tested pretty good as far as speed. I think he's more of an H-back type. You got to learn him out wide. But again, throw more and more weapons out there for Kyler Murray. Make this offense diverse. Make it tough to stop. I just love what Arizona did. I don't think they'll win the division by any stretch of imagination. They're in a division with the Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers. But this might be the toughest division in all of football. I think Arizona's going to be much improved. They still might be in last place, but I think they take a major step forward by the additions they made in the 2019 NFL Draft. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm exhausted. I've run through the entire draft, every single team, went through each and every class from 32 to 1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. Again, we are the next big thing in sports podcast. You can find us anywhere that has podcast-related material. That's your typical Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud. When you arrive to these platforms, if they have the capabilities to leave reviews, particularly of the 5-star review nature, please do so. Give us a shout out. Say why you like the podcast. We're trying to grow it grassroots style, and we appreciate the help. We enjoy doing the podcast. Hopefully you enjoy listening to the podcast. You can also find us online at thenextbigthinginsports.com. It has a long name because it gets long on material. We're going to give you stuff on reviews for the 2019 draft. We're going to look at fantasy football. We're going to break that down. We're going to look to the NFL and see where we value these teams, give you our NFL predictions, and we're going to take a look to 2020. It's never too early to look at the 2020 NFL draft class. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Check us out online, and check us out again at the Next Big Thing in Sports podcast.